In this video, we are going to discuss the how to formulate the questions in a questionnaire and the types of the questions and what are the important issues about formulation of the questions, and as well how can we proceed on with development of the questionnaire, the pre-testing of the questionnaire, the training of the data collectors, and how and what aspects we need to train them, and then we can talk about to what extent they're used for the portable computers for data collection in different surveys and research studies. We start with that. We have two types of questions that are open-ended questions and closed-ended questions. The open-ended questions, usually there are no suggested answers, there are no options, and then the respondents answered in his or her own words. Thus, this can result in lengthy responses, and the filling of the questionnaire is time consuming because the respondent needs to read the question and to write down the answer in the designed space. Answers are recorded in full or either by the interviewer, in other words. In the case of a self-administered survey, the respondent records his or her own entire response in the designed space. The advantage is that such questions allow respondents to express their ideas, their opinions spontaneously in their own language, and they are less likely to suggest or guide the answers than closed-ended questions, because here the respondents are free from the format effects associated with the closed question, in the sense that they are obliged to select from the options stated in the closed-ended question. Such open-ended question can add new information when there is very little existing information available about the topic. For example, when we are carrying studies during the COVID-19 pandemic, that there are no, we can use open-ended questions so that we can find or generate new information. The disadvantage is that such questions may be difficult to answer and even more to analyze. Usually, we are facing with problems in the analysis of open-ended questions. They require effort and time on behalf of the respondent. They read the question, they write the answers, and so on. They require the development of a system of coding categories. You have to make some sort of coding so that you can classify the responses as initial step for the analysis. They require the respondent to have some degree of writing ability, because for those people who are illiterate, they cannot read the question, so they cannot write the answer. Also, the respondent handwriting can be illegible. The other type is the closed-ended question, and these are questions in which the respondent is obliged or compelled to select his or her own response from a list of suggested answers provided in the questionnaire by the interviewer. The response format for closed question can range from simple yes and no response to an approve, disapprove, alternative, to asking the respondent to choose an alternative from 3 or 4 response options according to the type of the question or the nature of the question. The advantage is that the respondent is restricted to a limited number of responses and options, and thus he or she is obliged to select the answer from the options provided in the questionnaire. They are easy and quick to answer because it consumes less time, and within short time you can answer more questions in comparison to the open-ended question, which need more time. They have response category that are easy to code, and this is will facilitate the overall process of analysis. And also, such questions allow to include more questions. This format enables the respondent to answer more questions in the same time required to answer fewer open-ended questions. Yeah, in other words, that open-ended questions usually they need more time. So if you compare the time that is consumed for answering 30 open-ended questions, it will be longer than the time consumed for answering the same questions within the same question if you make them closed. The disadvantage is that they can produce some sort of bias either by forcing the respondent to choose between options that have never been thought of by the respondents. Maybe the options that are suggested in the question were never thought or never came to the respondents' mind to think about it. So they do not allow for creativity or for respondent to develop ideas and to provide opinions and maybe important information about certain issue. They require a skill to write, formulate, because responses categories need to be appropriate and need to be exclusive. They can introduce bias also where there is a tendency for the respondent to tick systematically either the first or last option, and also to select what may be considered as the most socially desirable response alternative. So people will always look for which of the options is socially acceptable, and they take it. And also to answer all items in a list in the same way. That's one of the problems usually encountered in close-ended questions. Now we talk about the wordings and length of the questionnaire. Simple words should be used rather than difficult medical and technical terms so that they can be easily understood by the respondents. Local words are used for specific conditions. You may have so many local words that are easily understood by the respondents. So we need to avoid the technical medical terms that can be difficult to be understood by the respondents. The questionnaire should not be too lengthy and not too short. If it is too lengthy, then it will be time consuming the respondent may give up to answer all the questions and become frustrated from the lengthy questionnaire. Also, if it is too short, then the generated information will be deficient and you cannot obtain the desired information you like to generate. We need to avoid double-barrel questions. See, these are single questions that ask for two things and therefore require two answers. For example, you may ask the respondent, have you ever smoked and used snuff? So, in such instances, respondents do not know what to do if they want to say yes to one part of the question and no for the other. They will be very confused what to do. So, we need to avoid double-barrel question. We should not ask about two things in a single question. Avoid also hypothetical questions. And evidence from research has shown that hypothetical questions are not good for prediction of the behavior of the individual. If you ask women about are you going to use contraceptive pills if they are made available for you? This is hypothetical questions, may not reflect or not predict exactly whether they are going to use the contraceptive pills. So we need to avoid hypothetical questions in the question. Also, we need to avoid double negatives and double negative either in the question or an answer category or both. And this will create difficulties for the respondents. As for example, a double negative statement which contains two negative words as well. And if two negatives are used in one sentence, the opposite meaning may be conveyed to the respondent, and this will make some sort of confusion. For example, a statement such as female genital cutting should not continue, followed by agree or disagree. See, this such question format will be problematic to answer for respondents who are in favor of female genital cutting. That is, those who do not agree that female genital cutting should not continue. So we have to avoid always such negative statements in the in the questionnaire so that to avoid causing confusion for the respondents. Also, we have to avoid overlapping response categories. The answer category should be the answer category should be mutually exclusive. For example, if you ask what is your age in years, the option is under 18 years. You can have the second, there will be overlapping if you say that 18, 28 years as second option, and then 28, 38, also the third option, 38 to 48, and over 48. Here, in question, in the option 2 and 3, there are overlapping. And this will make some sort of conclusion. For example, if individual is 28 years, is it going to be included as in option 2 or on option 3? So such overlapping should be avoided, and every answer should be mutually exclusive. They should not be overlapping. It should not be possible to agree with or choose more than one category, to select more than one option, unless the instructions explicitly allow the respondent to get more than one alternative. Be also as investigator, you have to be aware of leading question. A leading question is a question framed in such a way that it seems to the respondent that a particular answer is expected or is preferred by the interviewer. For example, how satisfied are you with the health insurance services provided at the clinic? Or most students perceive, for example, e-learning as ineffective approach. Do you agree? And in such way, this is a leading question. Also, another example, if you find this training module beneficial for you, would you recommend it to your friends or your neighbors or colleagues? And how satisfied were you with our services? When you give the option, extremely satisfied, satisfied, somewhat satisfied, and somewhat dissatisfied and dissatisfied. So, yeah, this is a leading question format that should be avoided because it gives the sense for the respondent that a favorable question is expected, or a certain question is expected to be checked or to be answered. The provided services adequately satisfied your expectation, didn't it? So this is a leading question which should be avoided. Layout of the questionnaire. The questionnaire should contain a title, date, serial number, interviewer's name, study institute, and study place, and subtitle, and so on. And the serial number and household number should be typed at the top or the bottom of each page. And this is important, especially if you are using questionnaire or paper questionnaire, because if you have multiple pages and these pages are pinned with each other, if one is lost, then you can easily uh, re relocate it, because you can find the number, the serial number of that paper, and this will save the time and to be more safe too. We need to fill the questionnaire if you are using paper questionnaires in pencils rather than pen. The pre-testing of the questionnaire is important and means that the questionnaire, before being used for data collection, should be tested and experimented. Should be tested to ensure that the questions are clear and easily understood by the respondent. And the aim of the pre-testing is to ensure that the questions are clear and properly formulated, and if there are any problems, we have to remove them. And then we can carry out the pre-testing through interviewing about 5 subjects similar to this study population in a similar area, so that you come and find out about all the questions through the questionnaire. If they are clear and easily understood, if any problems they are there, then you can make the correction, and then you translate it into the language which you like to use for data collection. The criteria of a good questionnaire that should be clear, simple, should be in clear, simple language, and tally with the variables and the objective of the study. As we have mentioned, that the questionnaire should be based on the list of the study variables. It's very important. And also, it is correct of constructed, and the grammar and spelling are checked so that everything is fine. And also, clear identification of the institute and the study title, and should be subdivided into sections, section 1, section 2, and so on. And we need to avoid duplicated and leading and negative questions, as we have mentioned. Neither too lengthy nor too short, and clear direction through the pause and the skipping from one question to another with instruction clear for the interviewer. And usually we need to use the question format, and also in close-ended questions, advocate options, and we have to minimize other pre-tested and corrected prior to the field work and prior to the training of the data collectors, and use effectively for training of the data collectors so that they will be acquainted with the questions, with the time they need to fill the questionnaire, and how to question, how to interview the respondents. Then we'll talk about the training of the interviewers. It's very important that the interviewers are to be trained before starting the field work. And they should be trained on the interviewing techniques, the communication skills, the contents and filling of the questionnaire, and as well the mechanism of informed consent from the study participant, the objectives of the study, and the time of filling the questionnaire, as well revision and cleaning of the field questionnaire, how to conduct field activities, and usually the duration of the training is about 20-24 contact hours. And the training should be competency-based rather than theoretical, with continuous interaction between the trainers and the interviewers. Innovative methods of training are to be extensively used, such as role play, small group discussion, and practical demonstration, so that this will facilitate for the interviewer to acquire the important competencies that will help them to hold the data collection effectively and efficiently. Now we'll talk also about the electronic data collection and management system. Now there's tendency to use portable handheld computers, electronic data management system that can be used, and still their use in countries like Sudan is limited, but in recent surveys we have used in tablets and the portable handheld computers with central program, and this will facilitate the data collection and the location of the interviewers during the field work, and will facilitate the overall process of data collection. Because most of the work now is carried as paper questionnaire with manual input and data entry, and this is time consuming and error prone and expensive, and a barrier to increasing the volume of the data and speed of collection analysis. But using of the computerized packages that will help to facilitate the overall process of the data collection management. We can use the portable handheld computers. We train the interviewers how to use them, and then they fill the questionnaire in the portable handheld computers, and then it will be immediately submitted to the central program managed by the computer programmer, which he or she will make a check, and if there are any problems or errors, so that he can give feedback immediately. And this will facilitate the overall process. And these are the examples of the portable handheld computers that can be used for data collection in the field, to facilitate the overall process of the data collection. Thank you very much.